People often say betrayal feels like a knife in your back, but they're wrong. It's not that sharp, not that sudden. It creeps in, hidden in normal days, over shared dinners, inside laughs exchanged across a table, in glances between people you never thought to question. That's how it started for me. Not with something explosive, but with little things I dismissed. I'd been married to Lena for 5 years. My younger brother, Kyle, had always been a part of my life. Carefree, charming, the kind of guy who turned heads without trying. He was reckless, yes, but I never thought he was dangerous. I trusted him completely. I trusted her just as much. And maybe that's why I missed the signs. I brushed them off, the too frequent inside jokes, the awkward silences when I entered the room, the lingering looks. I blamed my suspicions on stress. I told myself they were family, that I was just being paranoid. Then came the photo. My cousin had sent it in the group chat, just a snapshot from a camping trip Kyle had invited us all to. Lena hadn't gone, or so she'd said. She'd told me she had work, 3 days in Seattle. But there she was in the picture, right beside Kyle, laughing, wrapped in the same jacket she always wore. There was no mistaking her. The sight of it made my stomach turn. But I didn't confront her immediately. I wanted more than a hunch. I needed certainty. So I started digging. I scoured Kyle's tagged pictures, reviewed Lena's old travel confirmations, and eventually stumbled across something I hadn't expected. A cloud backup from Lena's previous iPad that hadn't been wiped when she upgraded. It held everything. Texts hidden under a disguised contact. Conversations that didn't leave room for doubt. Kyle. Last night felt right again. Lena. I missed you. Kyle. Being with you always feels like home. I stopped reading after that. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was real. Ongoing. Probably had been for months, maybe even longer. What gutted me most wasn't just the messages, but the timestamp on one in particular. That night, I had been sitting at my mother's bedside in the hospital after her surgery. Meanwhile, the two of them had been together. I sat there in silence, holding the tablet like it was radioactive, trying to breathe, to comprehend the weight of what I'd just seen. My wife and my brother, the two people I trusted more than anyone, had chosen to betray me, chosen each other. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment we'd shared. The birthdays, holidays, dinners, wondering how many of them were lies. How many of them were just well-rehearsed performances. The next morning, Lena kissed my cheek and asked if I wanted coffee. Like nothing was wrong. Like we were still us. I almost said something then, but I wasn't ready. I needed to hear it from Kyle. So I drove to his place. He lived in a cramped apartment downtown, still holding on to his so-called bachelor lifestyle even in his late 20s. He answered the door in sweatpants, clearly not expecting me. "You good?" he asked, trying to sound casual. I didn't answer. I just pulled out my phone and held up the screenshots. His face changed. He didn't deny it. Didn't even try. "How long?" I asked. He rubbed his forehead, like he was trying to buy time. "I don't know," he muttered. "It just happened." There was a pause. "Once," he said at first. But that pause gave him away. Then he added, "Twice." But that was it. We stopped after that. I turned around and left before he could say anything else. My hands were trembling on the steering wheel. It wasn't just the betrayal that made me sick. It was how easily he admitted it, like it was some mistake they had both outgrown. But I couldn't make peace with that. I drove around the city for hours that day, asking myself questions that had no answers. Did Lena turn to him because I hadn't been present? Did Kyle think about the consequences? Were they sorry because they hurt me or just because they got caught? That night, I put the iPad on the kitchen table and said nothing. Lena took one look at it, and the color drained from her face. She sat down slowly, tears welling in her eyes. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered. "I wasn't thinking. It was stupid. We were going through a rough patch." I felt alone and Kyle was there. "You had a choice," I said, my voice low. "And you made it twice." She begged me to stay, said she still loved me, that it was a mistake. But I couldn't even look at her anymore. "You didn't just cheat," I told her. You chose the one person in the world I should have been able to trust with you. That night, I packed a bag and left. I crashed on an old college buddy's couch. Didn't say much. Didn't feel much either. I was a ghost, moving through days without meaning. I scrolled through old photos, trying to trace the trail of lies I'd once called memories. Lena kept texting. First every day, then every few. She wanted to explain more. But what more was there to say? Kyle tried calling once. I let it go to voicemail. People talk about betrayal like it's all fire and fury, but it isn't. It's quiet mourning. You grieve the person you thought your partner was. You grieve the sibling you believed would stand by you, not destroy you. I cried sometimes, but it wasn't dramatic. Just silent tears in the dark, like my soul was bleeding out one drop at a time. A week later, I contacted a divorce lawyer. It wasn't just about Lena anymore. It was about saving what was left of me. Trust can't be pieced back together when it's been shattered into nothing. And I wasn't willing to live in that rubble. When I handed Lena the papers, she cried again. Said she understood. This time she didn't beg. She didn't resist. Maybe deep down, she knew what she'd done couldn't be undone. The news spread through our family like wildfire. My parents were heartbroken. My mom blamed herself, said maybe she failed somewhere along the way. My dad just clenched his jaw, his silence louder than anything he could have said. Kyle disappeared from family gatherings. Last I heard, he wasn't doing too well. Maybe the guilt finally caught up to him. Time moved on. The silence that once haunted me became a companion. I found a new place. I went hiking again. I started reading. I even taught myself to cook. Burnt more meals than I'd like to admit. But eventually, it became something I looked forward to. Somewhere in the quiet, I started finding pieces of myself I hadn't seen in years. Then one evening, a message popped up from Lena. Just 4 words. I still miss you. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her. Not anymore. I just didn't feel anything. Maybe that's what healing is, not feeling numb, not being angry, just being free. I'd already lived through the worst of it. I'd already drowned in the emotions. Now there was just stillness. They say blood is thicker than water. Maybe. But trust? Trust is like vapor. Once it's gone, it doesn't come back. Not really. I'm not bitter. I'm not broken. I'm just done. And that's enough.